Okay, on today's feature, we are talking um, about MS, which is multiple sclerosis, and about a new campaign to support people who live with this condition. I'm joined by Phoebe Day and also David Martin as well. Welcome to you both to the show.
Hi.
So much.
Great stuff to have you on. And we found out a big study on MS surveyed almost 2,000 people living with the condition, shows the struggle they have had over the last year and a half, on top of everything going on in the world as well.
Yeah, so from my personal experience, I started experiencing MS symptoms last June and initially was diagnosed with shingles via the GP. I wish it had been shingles. Unfortunately, a few trips to the doctors later and a very distressing trip to A&E, I was diagnosed with MS, which during lockdown and during a global pandemic was a little bit stressful and scary. But a year and a bit down the line, thanks to organisations like the MS Trust, who have some fantastic resources, and the Living Like You Ready to Talk MS campaign, which is in partnership with Novartis, I feel much more equipped with dealing with the condition.
Okay, great. And you mentioned the foundation, the organisation, the MS Trust. I'm going to go over to David Martin. Can you just tell me a little bit more about this trust, what it does?
Yeah, so we support people like Phoebe who are living with MS. So there is no cure for multiple sclerosis at the moment. But what we try and do is make sure that when people are diagnosed, they tend to be diagnosed in their late 20s or early 30s, that life can be as good as possible in the meantime. And we all just hope that that cure is going to come along sometime soon. In the meantime, there are some drugs that can be taken and they will dial down some of the impact of multiple sclerosis. We also try and make sure we encourage people to have the right sort of diet, the right sort of lifestyle, and ensure that maybe they can keep working as well. So as normal a life as possible.
And trying to enhance life, make it better for the person who suffers from the condition. You mentioned medicine as well. Is there a new hope with this new medicine called Novartis?
No, so Novartis is a pharmaceutical company, and we've worked very close with them, certainly over the last 3 or 4 months. And one of the challenges that we saw was that people living with MS were having a lot of problems because of what was happening with the pandemic. So because of the pandemic, the NHS was struggling. A lot of the doctors and nurses that would normally support people living with MS were being redeployed, were being moved to other parts of the NHS, and that people were taking longer to get to their appointments. Now, for most people, you would say, oh, shouldn't they just be patient? But we know that for people like Phoebe living with MS, you don't get enough support. You don't get to see your neurologist as often, and you could get worse and worse very quickly. And worse isn't just a bit of pain. Worse and worse can make disability come along even quicker. So it can be really bad news, and that's why we're concerned.
And I have here in front of me some statistics. 11% were not sure that what would be helpful for a neurologist. 5% needed more guidance to prepare to see a specialist. With the delays, they were waiting in the dark. What I'm trying to say here.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, go on, David.
yeah, so there's a challenge. So people a bit that there's been less appointments for people living with MS. So I wish we had a magic wand at the MS Trust, because if we did, we'd wave it and there'd be more neurologists and more MS nurses, so there'd be more appointments. But we haven't got that magic wand. So we put our heads together with a pharmaceutical company called Novartis and said, what can we do to help improve the situation? So we've decided the best thing to do is make sure that the appointments that are happening are maxed out. People get the most out of that. So together we worked and we created a website called livinglikeYou.co.uk, and there are loads of tips on there. Now, it is for people living with MS, but it actually works for other people as well when they're going to see a doctor, a consultant, a specialist, because actually there are some things that you can do to make that session much better. Two of the things I would say is before you go and see your consultant, if it's people living with MS or otherwise, write down the questions you want to get answers for. You'll forget them when you're in the session, but if you've got them written down on your phone or on a bit of paper, you've got them in front of you. And the other bit of advice is make a note, take some notes during the session. Now, if that's just too much for you, you're too much overwhelmed, take a friend with you, or family member. So what it means is when the session is finished, you can go away, you can look at those notes, and it will remind you what you need to do. So there's lots more details like that on this website, but we think it gives people a bit of a flying start.
That's some good advice there. And over to Phoebe now. Do you know how many people in Great Britain suffer with MS at the moment?
Oh, that's a good quiz question, which I think David's probably better answering that accurately.
Yeah, so every week, Danny, there are about 130 people who are diagnosed with MS. Now, that number's gone down quite recently just because people can't get to see the neurologist. But across the UK, there are about 130,000 people living with MS. So that's more than Parkinson's disease. It's a huge disease, but because it can't be seen, when you meet somebody living with MS, it's quite an invisible disease.
And thank you for your input there, David. I just wanted to ask Phoebe a few questions. Did it take a while to get your full accurate diagnosis, Phoebe?
So my actual diagnosis was quite quick in the grand scheme of things. So it was about 3 months. But where there was a long delay was seeing my neurologist for the first time. So from diagnosis to first consultation, I had to wait 8 months. And during that time, I didn't have resources like the Living Like You website, which I wish I had done, which is why I'm so passionate about raising awareness with David on this Ready to Talk MS campaign, because it gives you the resources you need. So although you're waiting for your appointment, you know that when you do get to it, you're making the most of it, thanks to organisations like Novartis and MS Trust.
And living with MS, what does a typical day entail? Do you get some days which are better than others, vice versa?
Yeah, you've really hit the nail on the head, because it's really a roulette. It's a lottery, I call it. Some days I might have a really great day and I forget that I've got MS. And other days I might be bedbound, want to lie in the dark, can have really bad pins and needles. So it varies, but I'm really fortunate that at the moment, on the whole, touch wood, I have really good days, and I'm grateful for access to drugs and a supportive neurology team that help make dealing with the disease a lot easier. And that's why we're so passionate about making sure that wherever you are on the MS journey, whether you're right at the beginning, you're trying to get a diagnosis, or maybe you've been living with it for a while, that you don't feel alone, and that there's resources out there for you to manage it in your situation. So it's really important to note that MS is very different from person to person. So whilst I'm dealing with it okay at the moment, there might be someone else who's having a much tougher time. And that's why these resources are so brilliant, because they can be adapted to where you are on your journey.
And I wanted to ask, what are some of the side effects of living with MS, the symptoms, so to speak, and the damage it does to the body?
So from my personal experience, my symptoms manifest in chronic fatigue. So I know we all get tired from time to time, but I get very, very exhausted. So it will feel like lead weights on your wrists and ankles. I might not even be able to lift the kettle. Pins and needles is a big one. I often describe as it just feels like someone's stabbing you up one arm and one leg. I would say those are my biggest day-to-day symptoms, but obviously they vary a lot depending on the person. Vision and also stability, so movement can be impacted. But again, it can also be a real invisible disability. So I have a disabled badge, and on my really bad days, I will use that to go food shopping. But people will often look at me and not see a wheelchair or a walking stick, and might not know there is something wrong with me, or I've got an MS diagnosis. So that adds an additional challenge and layer to raising awareness of this disease, because often it's not visible to the naked eye.
Thank you so much for your input there. And I just want to say thank you for your contribution both to Phoebe Day there and David Martin from the MS Trust organisation. Today's feature was to raise awareness about the new campaign to support people living with multiple sclerosis. Thanks for joining me, Danny, on my radio programme.
Thanks, Danny.